My brother Caleb got Europe. I got a $25 gift card with a sticky note that said, "So proud!" The exclamation point doing more work than our family ever did. They gave it to me after his graduation dinner at a downtown steakhouse where I was the designated photographer. Dad raised a glass to Caleb's limitless horizons, and winked at me like I was the horizon you ignore because there's a parking lot in the way. I wasn't furious. I was warm soda, flat, sweet, and vaguely embarrassing. Mom kept bragging about how she and Dad had always believed in experiences, which I guess is how you frame 2 weeks in Italy for your golden child while handing the other kid a card for a store that mostly sells batteries and beef jerky. Use it to invest in yourself. Dad joked, and everyone laughed the way people do when the joke lands on someone they're sure will never leave the room. Background, since you're asking, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, in a house where praise traveled like our old Wi-Fi, spotty, available mostly in Caleb's room, and gone whenever I needed it. He was varsity scholarship honors. I was the kid with the toolbox who fixed the dryer the night before their flight to Rome. I liked the click of things lining up, metal brackets, copper pipe, puzzle pieces in the dark space behind appliances. At 18, I didn't know a single Michelin star, but I could coax life out of a stubborn compressor with patience and a rubber mallet. Caleb's flight left the next morning. The family group chat blew up with photos of fountains and gelato and cathedrals. I stared at the gift card. It felt like a punchline I was supposed to finish. You know how some gifts are really instructions? This one read, "Stay small, stay grateful." So I took a bus to the north side and bought a second-hand multimeter and a used pair of insulated gloves. Invest in yourself. Right. The cashier, a guy with moon-face tattoos, looked at me over the register and said, "Good luck out there, man." It sounded like the first honest thing anyone had said to me in weeks. That night I lay on a mattress that squeaked like a guilty door and looked up YouTube videos of refrigeration systems until my phone burned hot in my hand. While Caleb posted a reel titled, "Roman Holiday," I learned the names of the parts that made strangers' milk stay cold. The video host dropped a line that stuck in my chest like a pale hook. Cold is earned. He meant pressure and heat exchange and humidity curves. I heard something else. I heard a future that wouldn't show up on vacation photos or in gift cards. I heard work that, if I did it right, would stop people's food from spoiling and their stores from closing and their paychecks from vanishing. Mom texted a picture of Caleb tossing a coin into a fountain and wrote, "Make a wish for your brother." I did. I wished for quiet. Then I wished harder, for a life where I didn't have to ask anyone to believe in it before it counted. The last thing I did before sleep swallowed me was put the gift card on my nightstand and write in Sharpa on the back, "For tools only." A joke, sure. Also a promise, and the first time I'd seen my own handwriting on my own rule. I taped it above the sink and told myself, quiet, out loud, that no one else got to audit my potential. A bus hissed outside. I decided if I was the practical one, I'd be practically unstoppable. I didn't find myself. I found Bruce, a refrigeration tech with forearms like old rope and a laugh that sounded like a wrench slipping. He was looking for an apprentice who would show up on time, not talk too much, and fit into crawl spaces without suing. I checked all 3 boxes. The pay wasn't glamorous, and the first month I smelled like Freon and fryer grease no detergent could fully defeat. Bruce ran jobs no one else wanted. Emergency calls after midnight, walk-ins icing over in the hottest week of July, a church freezer that kept frosting the communion wafers until the pastor hinted we were injuring salvation. He taught me to listen, to the grind that meant a bearing was dying, to the slow wheeze of a cap tube, to my own nerves when I wanted to rush and make the buzzing stop. "Cold is earned," he said once when I was elbow-deep in a reach-in, knuckles raw. I told him I'd heard that line before. "Then learn it twice," he said. "Once for the system. Once for your life." We work through heat waves and thunderstorms, the kind of weather that makes metal angry. I learned the rhythm, diagnosis, parts run, repair, test, tidy. Clients tried to tip me with pizza slices and the occasional absolution. The small bakery on Linden Avenue became our favorite stop. The owner, Ms. Holloway, baked apology muffins whenever we arrived after a disaster. She named one after me, cinnamon, pecans, a stubborn glaze that wouldn't quit. "You can't eat dignity," Bruce said, "but you can eat muffins." At home, meaning the one bedroom over a laundromat I sublet from a guy named Niles who collected ceramic frogs, I mapped my life with a grease pencil on the fridge: rent, tools, classes, savings. In the family chat, Mom posted photos of Caleb on scooters in Barcelona and beaches in Santorini. "Our world traveler," she wrote. No one asked about my world: the rectangle of a condenser coil, the bleach smell of a freshly defrosted fan shroud, the tiny victory of a compressor that kicked back to life like a heart in a TV drama. I kept the jokes going because humor is cheaper than therapy. When Mom asked how my week was, I sent a photo of a thermometer reading 34 degrees Fahrenheit and wrote, "Chilling." When Dad said I should think about real college, I replied, "Already enrolled in the University of Fan Motors, thanks." They sent back thumbs up and a gif of a penguin. Somewhere in there, I stopped waiting for a different relationship with them and started building bills with my name on the top line. It stung, sure. But stink can be fuel if you hold it right. On my 6-month mark, Bruce tossed me the keys to the van. "You drive," he said. It wasn't glamorous: 3 hubcaps, a door that held on via spirituality, but it felt like the first time an adult handed me more than weight. We rode to a grocery store where the produce case was sweating like it had secrets. I diagnosed a failing evaporator fan, swapped it, and watched the temperature fall 2 degrees, then 3, then 4. The store manager clapped me on the shoulder. Bruce nodded once, which was the kind of compliment you got when the numbers did the talking. That night, I peeled the price sticker off my new net driver set and stuck it to the gift card. The balance was down to $3.12. "Invested," I wrote under it. I didn't know it yet, but I just bought the first brick of a life no one planned for me, and I was learning to lay them level. Years blur when you measure them in service calls and miles on a van held together with zip ties and prayer. I took night classes in electrical fundamentals and business basics at the community college. I learned QuickBooks in secret like it was a hobby you don't tell your boys about. Bruce taught me how to bid a job so you don't end up paying for the privilege of sweating in someone else's ceiling. He also taught me that coffee is a tool and naps are field resets, not failures. 2 years in, a stroke took Bruce off the road. He pressed the van keys into my palm while the nurse pretended not to see. "Keep the customers cold," he said, voice thin but stubborn. "And don't be cute with pricing. Be fair, be first." I visited him every Sunday with a bag of Ms. Holloway's apology muffins. Even in a hospital gown, he looked like a bolt, simple, strong, essential. When he insisted I take his old label maker. "So you can stop writing left panel do not touch in Sharpie on everything," I cried in the hallway where it smelled like bleach and loss. I filed the Frostline mechanical paperwork in a strip mall UPS store. I bought a domain the same night and made a logo that looked like a snowflake wearing a hard hat. It was corny. It was also mine. The first time I wore a cap with that logo, my hands shook like there was a short in my wrists. Frostline was 2 people, me and a part-time dispatcher named Rena, who could calm an angry deli owner while simultaneously booking a coil replacement in 3 zip codes. We got our first big break when a chain of corner markets lost 3 coolers in one storm. I walked them through a plan that didn't sound like a magic trick: triage, parts, temporary storage, overnight swap. We finished at 4:10 a.m. The manager hugged me so hard my hat went crooked. "I can open," he said, and I realized our work wasn't machines. It was mornings. My family noticed I was busy, not successful. That's a difference you can see if you squint. At Thanksgiving, Dad asked whether I was still doing the fridge thing. Like it was a phase right next to juggling. Mom told me Caleb's Europe post had inspired her to start a travel Instagram, and asked if I would follow. I did. The first photo was of a suitcase with the caption, "Where to next?" I scrolled past in my van outside a bodega, eating a muffin that tasted like earned pride and cinnamon. Money was tight but honest. I paid Rena before I paid myself. I bought a used box truck that idled like it had opinions. I said, "No, to a sketchy contract that would have killed my margins, and yes, to a bakery that kept me in muffins and gratitude. Ms. Holloway slipped a note in one box that said, "For the college fund." I laughed, then cried, because the fund she meant wasn't for me anymore. It was for the apprentices I swore I'd hire someday, the ones who showed up with nothing but steady hands and a stubborn kind of hope. One night after a storm, we got a call from St. Raphael's Church. The freezer was frosting again, and the fish fry was at risk. I showed up, laid hands on the compressor like I was asking it to consider grace, and got it humming before dawn. Father Miguel poured me a coffee in a styrofoam cup and said, "May your hands always find the bolt." I taped that blessing inside the van, right next to the gift card. The balance was $0. 0 by then. The value wasn't. Success doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in, like cold air under a door you thought was sealed. We moved into a small warehouse with a roll-up door that complained every morning before its coffee. I put up pegboards for tools, labeled shelves, and set a line on the floor with tape. This side is chaos. That side is clean. Apprentices came, first Jamal, then Miri, each someone with calluses in the right places and a look like they'd been told to be grateful for scraps. I taught them what Bruce taught me: be early, be kind, be fair, be first. And I ran payroll before sleep, because dignity in a bank account beats speeches every time. My relationship with my family, meanwhile, was a loose wire hanging where everyone kept snagging a sleeve. I still came to birthdays, births, and the kind of holidays where someone always ended up crying into salad. The script didn't change. Caleb's updates were champagne. Mine were tonic water. "You should take a real vacation," Mom said one Easter, spooning ham like she was doling out wisdom. "You work so hard." I said I'd try, which was true in the way you say you'll try to catch a cloud in a jar. When I did take time off, it looked like a 3-day fishing trip with a cooler full of sodas and a rule about phones. Caleb posted a black and white photo of himself on a balcony in Paris, captioned, "Perspective." I posted a photo of my boots on a dock and wrote, "Same." Dad commented, "Save for a rainy day." I almost replied, "I am the rainy day." But Rena texted me a reminder that the words you don't send are a form of wisdom. We landed a contract with a regional chain, 30 stores, hundreds of cases, all on us if we could keep temperatures steady through the summer. It was the kind of deal that doesn't change your life so much as prove the life you built can handle changing. I celebrated by buying a coffee machine for the shop that didn't scream when it brewed. At a family barbecue that July, I showed up late, still in work pants, with a tray of Ms. Holloway's muffins and a sunburn shaped like the state of Ohio. Mom pulled me aside to ask if I could help with a small situation. Turns out Caleb had lost his job when the startup he joined in Berlin folded. "He just needs a little breathing room," she said, eyes on the muffins like they were the answer. "Maybe a short-term loan?" Here's the thing about boundaries: they're not fences to keep people out, they're lines to keep you from disappearing. "I can't do a loan," I said. "What I can do is help him polish a resume, role-play interviews, and send him some job boards." Mom looked at me like I'd offered to fix a leak by filling the ocean. "That's not what family does," she said. "Family helps." I thought of Bruce, of Rena, of the apprentices standing in a circle at 6:45 a.m., with coffee and the day's plan. That felt like family. I shrugged quietly and set the muffins down. The next morning, Caleb texted me directly. "Heard you won't help." I stared at the screen long enough for the bubbles to come and go 3 times. "I will help," I wrote. "Just not with money." He sent a thumbs down. 2 hours later, Jamal nailed his first solo diagnosis, and Mary negotiated a parts discount like she was born in a supply house. Balance, I thought. Not fairness. Life isn't a pie chart, but enough weight in the right places so the table doesn't tip. I didn't buy a sports car. If you're waiting for that part, keep waiting. I bought mornings. I bought a little downtown office with light that spilled over a scarred desk like forgiveness. I bought a second box truck that didn't scold me with every mile. I bought health insurance for the crew and a payroll service that stopped making me cry. I bought time, mine and theirs, by hiring a night cruise so no one's life had to sit on a crate in a walk-in at 2 a.m., unless they chose it or were paid accordingly. On the wall of the office, I framed a few things that weren't degrees: Bruce's label maker tape that read, "Test before touching." Biz Holloway's first college fund note, the St. Raphael blessing, an invoice where I wrote, "No charge," next to a deli owner's panic after his kid's asthma attack, because sometimes you charge in ways money can't see. In the bottom corner, tucked where only I could lean and smirk, I mounted the empty gift card, the sharp promise still visible, for tools only. It looked like a map to a place I didn't know I'd been brave enough to go. Dating was an adventure. Try explaining to someone over dinner that you own a company people forget they need until everything melts. Some people found it beautiful, some found it unromantic. I found joy with Maya, a nurse who understood weird hours and the way relief can taste like cold water after bad news. She asked good questions unlike bad movies. When I told her about Europe versus gift card, she didn't make a speech. She said, "I'm sorry." That must have felt small. And then pressed my hand until my throat could open again. Family gatherings didn't get better, they just got farther away. Mom still introduced me as our fixer, like I was a remote with missing batteries. Dad still suggested I think about scaling back, now that the business seemed stable. Caleb found gigs, lost them, found others. I hired one of his friends who'd been let go and watched him fall in love with the satisfaction of a level shelf. "I didn't know I could like work," he said, baffled. "We're tricking people," I whispered. "We're giving them competence. It's addictive." 2 more years. We hit a stride I didn't know existed: jobs that fit together like puzzle pieces, clients who paid on time, apprentices who became techs who taught the next kids how to listen for the sound a good system makes when you close it up: quiet plus promise. I started a small scholarship at the community college for trade students who had more grit than cash. I named it the Cold as Earned Fund and cried like an idiot when the first thank you note arrived with grease fingerprints on the envelope. The best thing I bought, though, was Frost School: 2 hours a month of donuts, drills, and soft skills: owning mistakes, de-escalating 3 a.m., panic, leaving spaces better than we found them. Sometimes I still refresh my mom's travel Instagram, scrolling through beaches and mountain ranges and wanderlust vibes. I don't hate travel. I hate the way it was used to measure who deserved wonder. One night, after a 14-hour day that ended in tuna salad at my own kitchen counter, I booked a trip, not to Europe, but to a lake 3 hours away. Maya and I watched the sky rinse itself gold while our phones slept. I didn't post it. I didn't need anyone to clap for my view. The water was cold. We earned it. Exactly 10 years after the steakhouse, I was in my office rehearsing a speech for our apprentices' graduation. 8 techs moving up, 8 families about to sleep through the night because somebody's kid got a career, when Rena buzzed me. "Your parents are here," she said, voice neutral like I'd trained her. "We have a rule about surprises: we don't weaponize them." "Do you want me to say you're on a call?" "No," I said, surprising myself. "I'll take it." I could have met them in the conference room with the 2 honest fluorescent lights. Instead, I invited them into my office where the morning pooled soft on the floor. They looked older, which is to say more like people than like headlines in my head. Mom carried a manila envelope and the kind of smile you wear when you smell a bakery but you're not sure you can afford anything inside. Dad had a face like the weather, clouds with a chance of lecture. "Nice place," Dad said, eyes cataloging the framed bits on the wall. His gaze snagged on the gift card and moved on. "You've done well for yourself." The words sounded edible and dry. Mom set the envelope down and slid out 2 plane tickets. "We need a favor," she said, like the opening line of a long story I didn't remember agreeing to. "Your father and I booked a trip to Europe for our anniversary. We thought we had the points to cover it, but something changed with the card, long story. The payment failed, but the travel agent says we can still go if we pay by Friday." She smiled like a receptionist asking for a copay. "Could you spot us? We'll pay you back next month." Every part of the younger me woke up at once: the kid with the toolbox, the boy who texted, chilling, to keep from crying, The apprentice who learned to listen. I heard the bearing scream under the politeness. It wasn't about the tickets. It was about a pattern, the assumption that their adventure was my responsibility if the math got awkward. I appreciate you asking, I said, because kindness is not a leak you fix once, it's maintenance. But I don't do loans to family. Dad went red in the particular way he reserves for when the word, no, enters a room. It's not a loan, he said. It's helpful. We helped you. I looked at the framed label tape, the blessing, the muffin note, and the empty card. You did, I said. You gave me a gift card. I bought my first multimeter with it. I touched the frame. It was the best joke anybody ever told about me. Mom blinked. Ethan, this is cruel. We're not asking for a handout. We just need a bridge. Bridges are for both sides, I said softly. I've spent a decade building mine. You are welcome to cross it. You are not welcome to charge a toll. They sat tentative. While they talked, my brain did its old gymnastics. Fix it once for a quiet holiday, then the steadier voice. What would you be teaching? I remembered bailing Caleb. For 1 month. And writing a policy after. No loans, gifts small enough to forget, no emergencies that arrive as expectations. Wanting isn't a sin. Expecting someone else to sponsor it is. Silence expanded. Rena's laugh floated from the front desk. Someone rolled a ladder in the shop. Life didn't pause for any of this. It never had. I poured them water and looked at the notebook on my shelf with family and money written in block letters. Boundaries weren't punishments. They were instructions to myself. I could be kind without making my life collateral. Mom folded the tickets like she could erase the price. We'll sell them then, she said. We'll cancel. We thought maybe after everything you'd. She waved a hand that tried to include my childhood and exclude the parts that didn't help her case. Choose family. I didn't remind her that family had often chosen away from me. Instead, I slid a different envelope across the desk. Inside was a printout with a logo they didn't recognize. What's this? Dad asked, suspicious in the way people get when generosity doesn't look like cash. It's the Qley Discern Scholarship, I said. We're adding 2 more spots this year. In honor of your anniversary. Mom blinked. You're donating money instead of helping your parents take their first real trip to Europe? I'm using my money for the thing I wish I'd had when I was 18. I said. Tickets to a life. Not a flight. I let the words sit. You can come to the ceremony Friday if you want. There'll be muffins. Dad scoffed. Muffins. He stood. You think you're better than us? I stood too. No. I'm different from who you told me to be, and I'm investing that difference in other lives. Mom's eyes filled. We just wanted to feel special, she whispered. I looked at the wall, then at my mother, who wanted to be the main character for 2 weeks. I can't fund your trip, I said. But I'll pay for dinner tonight. Anywhere in Dayton. Bring Caleb. Dad started to argue. Mom touched his sleeve. Dinner, she said. Okay. When you pick me only as an ATM, I disappear. I said. I won't. I'll choose you for stories and food, not transactions. That sounds pretty, Dad said. Doesn't buy a ticket. No, I said. But it buys a table. I nodded toward the shop window where Jamal and Miri were labeling bins. And I build those. They left with the manila envelope under Mom's arm and something like weather behind Dad's eyes. The door side shut. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until Rena appeared with 2 muffins on a clipboard. Report? She said. Boundary held, I said. Collateral, none. Not your trip, she said, satisfied. She tapped the paper. You really want to add 2? I do. I clicked Bruce's old label maker, family and money, and no loans, and stuck it inside my notebook above that first month budget that once looked like a dare. This is me telling my past self he was right. Rena smirked. He usually is. He just whispers. Caleb called before lunch. Mom says you won't spot them, he said, a greeting that arrived already tired. I won't loan them money, I said. I will buy dinner. And I'll help anyone who wants a job make a resume that doesn't read like a travel blog. That's funny. It's a joke, I said, but not about you. He was quiet. I know, I coasted. I want to be useful. My throat did that suddenly small thing. Come tonight, I said. Bring questions. I'll bring muffins. I remember those muffins, he said, and I could hear the smile. Okay. After we hung up, I stared at the empty gift card and remembered bussing plates and the flicker of bus window lights, deciding that if love had a budget, I'd learn to love myself in installments, tools first, then time. I drafted the scholarship expansion and wrote the dedication twice before it felt true. In honor of an anniversary, and of everyone who chooses mornings over miracles. At 4, I booked a private room and sent the confirmation to the family chat. Tonight, 7 p.m. My treat. Mom hearted it in under a minute. Dad reacted with a thumbs up, the universal emoji for "We're doing this." Before shutdown, I added a line. Recipients get a small frame for their first empty gift card. Label, for tools only. Corny perfect. Rena poked her head in. You look lighter, she said. I decided something, I said. Which is? I'm not against trips, I said. I'm against forgetting who paid for the ticket. She nodded, handed me my jacket, and held the door. Let's go buy dinner. Dinner was loud and decent. We chose a place where the napkins were cloth and the water tasted like someone apologized to it first. Caleb came, thinner around the pride, warmer around the eyes. Mom told a story about me at 6 dismantling the VCR to let the movie breathe. And for once everyone laughed with me, not at me. Dad raised a glass to hard work. I paid the check and left a tip that said, I see you. At the end, Mom hugged me too hard. Thank you, she said. It's not Europe. But it felt like a trip. I walked them to the parking lot under a sky that had the audacity to be beautiful. Caleb hung back. I was a jerk, he said. About a lot of things. I was a shadow, I said. It made sense you didn't see me. He nodded, guilty and grateful in equal measure. If you ever want to learn how to make a walk and stop screaming, I added, we're always hiring. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. And the muffins are insane. He laughed, the good kind. The next morning at the apprentice ceremony, 8 new techs stood in shirts we pressed an hour earlier. Their families cried. Ms. Holloway brought a cake shaped like a toolbox. Father Miguel blessed the hands. I called names and watched futures take on weight. At the end, I announced the 2 new scholarships. This year, I said into a microphone that squeaked on principle. They're dedicated to a couple who taught me, accidentally, the difference between a trip and a ticket. I didn't look to see if my parents were in the crowd. I didn't need them to be for the moment to count. Back in my office, the manila envelope with plane tickets lay where my parents had forgotten it. They hadn't meant to leave it. Life just weighs your hands sometimes. I slid it into a drawer next to the framed gift card, the blessing, the label tape, and a photo of Bruce in a cap that said Frostline crooked because he'd insisted he wasn't photogenic. I wrote a note and taped it to the drawer. The only tickets I buy are for other people's mornings. Rena knocked. You ready for the grocery chain walkthrough? Always, I said, grabbing my hat. Outside, the day was already hot and sticky, the kind of weather that eats profit margins. Jamal loaded the truck. Mary argued with a supplier over a part number like a poet fighting for a rhyme. Maya texted a photo of our lunch packed in a cooler, because love is logistics. Before we pulled out, I sent one message to the family chat, a picture of the scholarship certificates with their dedication. Caption: Bon voyage. Then I shut off my phone and climbed into a truck that didn't believe in luck, only math and hands and errors you correct with patience. The engine turned over, ready. We rolled toward a store that needed us so its doors could open and somebody's day could start. That's the trip I take, every morning.